Hello there. In this video I'm going to show you how you can make a bracelet similar to the one shown on the screen there, and I'm going to write the name Rachel around it using a Harrington font, and I'm going to add a couple of astrological symbols. One you can't see here, this one you can. This is a Cancer astrological symbol, and we're going to do it using Fluid Designer for 3D printing. So we're going to use this zodiac Cancer pattern here, and notice at the moment that the object, if I just view it from the top, I go to main information, it's about 19 millimeters by 19 millimeters, and at the moment the default cross section of this is 1 by 1. We could of course change that because these are parametric objects, but we're actually going to stick to 1 millimeter by 2 millimeters deep. I'm also going to use, probably need to click on group library here to refresh the list. I'm also going to use a astrological Eastern pattern. I'm going to use this zodiac dog Eastern pattern. So we're assuming that Rachel was born in the year of the dog and in the month Cancer. Now notice this isn't quite as thick as the other one, so we will need to change that cross section to 1 by 2 to match the other astrological symbol, but we'll do that in a minute. And I'm also going to use, again I need to refresh the library here, I'm also going to use some Harrington fonts. So I'm going to use some of these letters here to spell out the name Rachel. And because we're making a bracelet, if I just go to File and New, and go to bracelets, what we're going to do is we're going to use this 65mm all UK size bracelet master template file. And so if I just drag and drop that object onto the workspace, now I could change the inner diameter of my bracelet from 65mm to 60 or 55 or 90. I'm going to stick with the default size, so I'm going to stick with the default 65mm inner diameter there, but I do need to change the cross section of my object. So at the moment it's 1mm by 10mm, so I'm going to change that to 2mm by 2mm. So that's 2mm there and 2mm down there. I'm just going to switch on screencast keys, so any key presses I make should be displayed down here. And if I just go to view and front view now, what I want to do is to use this as the outline for the bracelet. So I'm going to put one at the top and one at the bottom. So if I just move that up to there first of all, and just go to Tools, Object Tools, duplicate that object, and just press the Shift key, press the Enter key, sorry. And then if I just move that down, what that's going to do is going to give me a distance from this line to this is at 20 millimeters or 2 centimeters. We're in centimeters, as you can see here. So my Cancer and dog astrological symbols should fit neatly inside here. So we've got two objects there at the moment. Default in the diameter 65 there, default in the diameter 65 there. If I hold down the Shift key and select both objects and join them together, we'll end up with just one object. And I'm just going to set the origin back to the geometry, back to the cursor there at the end, middle of the screen. Not necessary to do that, but I'm going to do it anyway. Okay, so there's my outline for my bracelet. What I want to do now is to append our astrological symbol. So I'm going to append this zodiac Cancer pattern, and notice that there are two of them here. The one without the box around it is 001, the one with the box around it is 001A, and it's in Patterns Astrological folder. So that's where I need to append the item from. So if I go to File and Append, now always go up through the menu system until you get to the Groups folder, and then you'll see all the patterns and all the available objects on your system in Fluid Designer. And I want astrological symbol, I want Cancer pattern, but I want 001A. I want the one with the box around it. And we always append the object. So it's the Zodiac Cancer pattern 001A. And if I append that from the library, you can see that it brings my object in. And now I need to click on it to make sure it's highlighted, so I want it in yellow. Now I clearly need to rotate it, and I need to rotate it about the x-axis. So if I do R on the keyboard, restrict my rotation to the x-axis by pressing X on the keyboard and type 90. That will rotate it 90 degrees. Now what I want to do is to wrap this object around my bracelet. And I can do that using a curve modifier. And my bracelet itself is default inner diameter 65. That's the object's name. So that's what I need to wrap my Cancer pattern around. So if I just scroll down here and look for default inner diameter 65 millimeters, that will wrap it around there. Now, one thing to note when you do this is objects like this do get flipped around. If we look at this, you can see the pattern here is there, that kind of fishtail pattern. If I remove that, you'll see that it's actually the wrong way round. So before you do this, what you should also do is to rotate the object in the Z direction 180 degrees. So you're just flipping it backwards, really. So the Cancer pattern should look like that. However, we want to flip it backwards before we wrap it around the curve. It's just how the curve object works in Fluid Designer. So you just need to turn anything backwards, that's all. So I'll just set it to the default inner diameter there. Now if I just go view and front view, and if I just pull that object down now, and then it looks like I need to pull it a little bit further down so I can zoom in there, and yep, okay, that's not too bad. Now what you've got to look for is you want some overlap at the top here and overlap at the bottom. I think I've probably got a little bit more overlap at the bottom than the top. So if I just switch off snap, and if I just move it up very slightly so that my overlap at the top and the bottom is the same, and if I just switch into wireframe mode, I can see better. You can see here the yellow is going into the grey, probably a little bit too much at the top, so I'll just move it down very slightly. Yep, that's okay. So I can switch back to material mode now, and if I just set this center back at the origin there, so if I just go to Tools, Object Tools, and set it to the cursor, so there's my Cancer astrological symbol placed on the outside of my bracelet. I now want to do the same with the dog pattern, so I'll just refresh the list here by clicking Group Library. So I'm also going to append the astrological Eastern. So I want this, let's see, which one do I want? I want the Zodiac Eastern dog pattern. So again, it's 001A with the box around it. So I'm repeating what I've just done here basically. So I'll just go to File and Append. Go up through the menu system until you get to the Groups folder. Now I want astrological Eastern pattern this time, and I want dog pattern 001A. So append that from the library, and as you can see, that brings it into the middle. Now remember that the thickness of this one is only 1 millimeter, so I just need to change that cross section from 1 by 1 to 1 by 2, so that just makes it the same thickness as the other pattern. And again, I just need to do the same thing here. I need to do rotate X 90 degrees, rotate Z 180 degrees to turn it anti-clockwise, and I need to add a curve modifier, and it's the same curve modifier, it's the bracelet one that I want here. So whatever size your bracelet is, and we're just using the default size here, and that will place the object there. And then if I just go to view and front, now I'm just going to hide the Cancer one. So over in the outliner panel here, if I click on the eye and click on the plus, that will just hide the zodiac Cancer pattern out of the way for the moment while we work with the dog pattern. So I'll just move that down. Now my snap is off at the moment, so I'll just move that down. Yep, that looks okay. I'll just go to wireframe and just have a look at it. Yeah, that's probably all right now. And I'll just set the origin back to the cursor again for that particular object. Okay, so there's my dog pattern. Now what I want to do is to add the name Rachel. Now I'm going to hide the dog pattern in the same way that I did with the zodiac, because I'm going to put the word Rachel on my bracelet now, and for that I'm going to use Harrington fonts. So I'm going to append these objects from Patterns, Harrington fonts, to spell the name Rachel. So we go to File and Append, up through the menu system until we get to the Groups folder, and Alphabet Harrington font, and I want the letter R for Rachel, and it's always the objects that we append. So Harrington font R, append it from the library, and if I just go to View and Top View, so there's my letter R. Now I'm going to pause the video here while I spell out the rest of the word Rachel, and then I'll start it up again. Okay, so I've just placed all the letters A-C-H-E-L to spell out Rachel there, just by going to File and appending them from that folder. Now I want to show you how we can actually position Rachel on this bracelet. So first of all, if I just go to View and Top View, I need to make these so that they're all the same sort of height. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to line up the bottom of each one with a point on the grid there. So I'm just moving them all down so that the bottom of them are all at the same position on my grid. Okay, so the bottom of them is all lined up now, but as you can see, some of them are slightly higher than the others. Now these four look to be pretty much okay. Maybe I actually need to size that one up a little bit. Yeah, so what I can do here is if I highlight it and if I press S on the keyboard and restrict the scaling to the Y direction, I can just make that a little bit taller. And whenever you do that, you must always do Control A and apply the scale. Now if I just move the bottom up so that it's in line, so that looks a little bit better. That C seems to be okay. Now my A is a little bit too tall here, so I'm going to do S on the keyboard to scale, Y to restrict the scaling to the Y direction only, and do Control A and apply the scale. And I just need to relocate the bottom now and see how it lines up with the top. So that's not too bad, hopefully. And I need to do the same with the R. So S to scale, Y to restrict the scale. Whoa, going. My mouse not working very well here. Whoa. Alright, I'm actually going to type in 0.95 there just to scale it down because my mouse wasn't working terribly well there. But always remember to do Control A and apply the scale. And I'll just line up the bottom there. And yeah, that's probably just a little bit too much. So I'll do S again and Y and let's say 0.95. So I'm just scaling it down by that factor and do Control A and apply the scale. And that's more or less in line now. So I've just lined them up along the bottom and the top, and if I now hold down the Shift key and highlight all of these objects, and what I'm going to do is to join them together, and now I'm going to set the center of gravity of it, the origin, to the geometry of this new shape. And then I'm also going to snap it to the cursor. So that just centers Rachel, center of gravity of Rachel, and centers Rachel on the screen there now. Now clearly, to put it into my bracelet, I need to rotate this about the x-axis 90 degrees. And remember that when we wrap this around the curve, it's going to rotate 180 degrees, so we do need to go to R, Z 180 degrees and just turn Rachel backwards. And then when we apply a curve modifier, so with Rachel highlighted, if we go to curve modifier, we're going to wrap this also around the bracelet object, so our default bracelet size is what I'm looking for. So we're going to curve it around the default inner diameter bracelet. So you can see that that lines it up there. And if I just go to view and front view, and then just pull this down now. Now, as you can see, it's not quite the right height at the moment, so we are just going to have to scale all of these objects up. So I want to get that in to the middle of the bracelet before I scale anything. Okay, I think that's probably alright, and I'll just go to Tools, Object Tools, and set my origin to the cursor again. And if I now press S on the keyboard and scale this object up, whoops, we've got to scale it up in such a way that we think it's going to fit in there. Now always remember to do Control A and apply the scale. And if I just zoom in again, I haven't quite scaled it up enough, so I'll do S on the keyboard, and I'm actually going to type in 1.05, so it's 105% or 5% bigger, and press enter and do Control A and apply the scale. And then if I just move it up now, so I've got some overlap there at the top and the bottom. So Rachel is touching the bracelet at the top and the bottom. Now you've got to go around this and just double check. So if we go to wireframe mode, we can see, if we go to view and front view, we can see whether there's enough overlap. So you just need to go around and carefully check that it is all overlapping. Now the letter R probably isn't quite overlapping there, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to move a control point of this letter R. So if I go to the, if I press the tab key on the keyboard and go into edit mode, just go to view and front. If I go over to the letter R, if I actually move this control point down a little bit, the bottom of the R, when I press the tab key and go back to normal mode again, the bottom of the R now should be inside of that bracelet. So rather than scaling the R, I've actually just moved a control point. So there's our Rachel fitting inside our bracelet. Now what we need to do is to go back and look at our zodiac patterns as well, with our dog and Cancer patterns. Now you can see that they're all kind of centered in this one point here, so we want to move the Cancer and the dog patterns around. And what I'm going to do before I move them, I need to change them into a mesh. So I've got the dog pattern highlighted at the moment, and I change that into a mesh now. And don't do that until you're happy with the position of it. And if I then go to the main information icon here, what I want to do, I need to rotate it around, oops, that's the wrong one. I need to rotate it around the Z axis and position it appropriately over there somewhere. Now, if I just do Control Z and undo that, you can see that I've got some values here of 90 and 180, and that's because we've rotated this a couple of times previously. If I just do Control A on the keyboard and apply the rotation, those values will be set back to 0. What I can do now is if I type in 120 degrees there, what I've done effectively, this is the center of our three objects, our Rachel and our two astrological symbols. And so what I've done is I've moved the dog symbol around 120 degrees. If I do the same with the Cancer pattern, highlight it, go to Tools, Object Tools, and convert it to a mesh. And again, I need to set these back to 0, and I can do that by doing Control A and apply the rotation. That will set them to 0. Now I don't want to go round 120 degrees, I want to go minus 120 degrees. And that will rotate the Cancer pattern to there. Now what I've done effectively, if I view this from the top, is this is the center of the name Rachel, and we've gone 120 degrees there and 120 degrees, so 3 times 120 is 360. So that's how I've centered them. Now you don't have to do it like that. You could offset them even further if you like, if you don't want this gap at the back, but that's how I've done it, so that they are positioned like that. Now to finish this object off, what I need to do is to convert Rachel to a mesh, convert the bracelet outline to a mesh. Okay, so now what we need to do is to make sure that we do in fact join all these objects together. So if I click on Rachel first of all and hold down the Shift key, click on the dog pattern, click on the Cancer pattern, and click on my bracelet. So I'm highlighting all parts, and if I go to Tools, Object Tools, and join them together, what we should have now is one object with the name Rachel there. I'll just switch off the grid, just move the grid floor out of the way there. So I've got Rachel there. I've got my dog pattern and my Cancer pattern. It's all one object. Now all you need to do now is to export that as a wavefront object or as an STL object, but you must then also run it through Netfabb Basic to do any repairs that are required. But because these are parametric smart objects that we've been using here, we should be fine. Okay, so that's how you can make your own personalized bracelet using Harrington font. You can wrap your name around it, and you can choose your own astrological symbols as well, depending upon your date of birth and year of birth. Okay, so that's it. Thank you.